Hi, good evening, and yeah, welcome to day 27 of my challenge. I'm going to keep this going at the end of the 30 days, but probably not on everyday basis. I'm going to try and get some more structure to it. But thanks for joining me, and I'm still keeping up with my storytelling theme as I'm going through, and I've been thinking tonight about storytelling in the sense of, hi Daniela, storytelling in a way in which I use it in a lot of my speaking, because most of what I do tends to be transgender awareness training. And some of that can be quite technical, quite legal. One of the things that I tend to talk about quite a bit is unconscious bias. Difficult topic. I didn't really think I knew anything about the whole topic. I was asked by a client, Burnsley Homes, way back in, 2012 now, to do something, and I'd never ever done anything about unconscious bias, and I had to start researching it to figure it out. And I find it's quite difficult when you start on a relatively technical topic. Unconscious bias, that tendency we have to be prejudiced for or against a person or group of people, and it's very difficult to track it, because this is not the conscious discrimination or conscious sense of biasing towards one group or another. It's that unconscious bias that we have. Now, for example, I was unconsciously biased against the LGBT community before I came out. I was quite frightened of the fact that I was trans. I didn't want people to know. And I tended to feel if in any way I favoured people from the LGBT community, it would flag up the possibility that I was, or that I favoured them, and therefore I tended, if anything, to go the other way. I tested my unconscious bias on this about a year ago, just to see where I was now, and found that I'd actually switched completely. I'm now very, very unconsciously biased in favour of the LGBT community, and that's quite a difficult issue. Now, if you want to test your unconscious bias, the way to do this is to go to a test. If you just look up implicit association tests on the internet, you'll get to a site run by Harvard University. And this is an open project that they've got running, where you can actually go on there and you can test your bias. And the way that they do it, you're focusing on the I and E keys on the computer. And what you have to do is sit there, and they flash words up which are related to the topic that you're testing. So, for example, one of the tests is on gender bias. Are you biased towards thinking about women and home, men and work? Because that's the way we tend to think. So the way that they test that is initially they'll throw up words like male and female names, and you just flick I or E, depending on which one they've asked you to do, and they'll swap it backwards and forwards just to sort of try and balance it out and make sure it's not picking up a particular, if you have a right-handed bias, they'll try and eliminate that. And then we'll get words like words around family, relationships, and then words around career, and they'll flick those up, and you have to you separate those out into male and female, and then they mix them all up, words, names, career, and everything else. By doing this process of just randomly throwing words up, and you have to microseconds just to quickly check, what they're checking is those microsecond differences that it takes you to respond to a particular term. And that then flags up a possibility that you have an implicit bias in your working towards favour. And I found I was still strongly biased towards thinking about women and family, men and work. And it's difficult to scrub that, because it's been indoctrinated into us, our movies, the films, everything we see. And the thing about bias is that all these biases come in through our family, they come in through our friends, through the way we work at school, just the books that we read. I mean, one of the things that I found was it is very difficult to find details of female artists more than 100 years ago. Same with female authors. And you think about the Bronte sisters, initially had to try and put their books forward as under male pseudonyms in order to get them published. J.K. Rowling even published her book under the name of J.K. Rowling, because she was concerned that it wouldn't be taken seriously if it was actually under her name. Sorry, I've got a little flicker of internet disturbance there. So, I mean, these are the things that I had to try and study and understand to help people to understand it. And it's a good test. If you want to test various different associations that you have, different biases, the thing about unconscious bias is we are all biased. Doesn't matter what you do. We've got biases. I mean, in a simple way, you're biased against violence. You're biased in favour of supportive people. I'm very strongly biased in favour of people who support trans children. There are other people strongly biased against that. Some of those biases are not unconscious. They're very conscious and they're very open. And others of those are biases that we just aren't aware of. And when you look at some of the statistics around unconscious bias, that's quite startling. Now, the one that shocked me is that 60% of chief executives are over 6 foot tall. 60%. And yet the population as a whole, I'm looking at hi Jen, good to see you. In the population as a whole, only 14% of people are over 6 feet tall. Now, that has a second thing about bias in there. If you think that we're biased in favour of tall people when it comes to giving them the senior leadership jobs, what does that say about the way in which, about women's chances of getting senior leadership jobs? Because, obviously women are far less likely to be 6 feet tall, because women on average are about 3 inches shorter than men. So that's a part of the unconscious bias, which actually is helping to prevent women from getting themselves into decent positions within the workplace. And trying to grab hold of that and understand that bias, that we will automatically favour taller people into authority positions. Very, very strange. But that's the way in which which bias works. I've talked about the gender bias, the whole same thing. Now, one of the strange things I found was that I didn't think I knew much about this topic. I started reading up, obviously read 2 or 3 books, and there's loads of stuff on the internet. Some very learned people have done videos, whole long, hour-long lectures. So it was quite good grabbing the information and checking it all out. And then I suddenly saw some connections. My background was in sales and marketing. That was what I taught for about 25 years. I was a sales trainer, teaching sales training. Hi, Shelley. Good to see you. And I found that when I looked at the way in which, as a marketer and somebody in marketing, I was head of marketing for an insurance company for quite a while. And obviously one of the things that I try to do as a marketer, and all product managers and marketers try to do, we try to bias the consumer in favour of our products. So when you go into a supermarket and you wander down the supermarket aisle, you're looking for your products. And even if you're just looking to, I need to get some beans. When you get to the beans section, there may be 3, 4, 5 different brands. There's Cross and Blackwell's beans, there's Heinz beans, there's the supermarket's own brand beans. There may be some beans you haven't got. There's beans with chili, beans with it. And you've got such a huge array of them. But shopping, we can't take that long. So what we tend to do is we look and think, okay, you just grab the Heinz beans, because you still got that little rhyme, beans means Heinz, and that's advertising. That advertising, it gets into your head and you can't get rid of it. 1 million housewives every day pick up a tin of beans and say beans means Heinz. Why do I still know that? That silly rhyme that goes back, God, donkey's years. That was like the 70s, I think, in the advertising then. But that's the whole thing. When somebody says only Heineken can do this, because I bet you can already complete the rest of that phrase, because Heineken reaches the parts other beers cannot reach. And what's happening is that when you go into a bar and you see Heineken, you go, oh, I'll have a Heineken, and what's happened is that by advertising, by promotions, by associations, and clever advertising is designed exclusively to get you biased, so that when you go to buy something, you automatically reach for the brand that someone wants you to buy. And you don't think about it. You've bypassed the thought process. We've bypassed the whole sales process to get you to grab for something. And it's literally programming unconscious bias into the way in which you work. And then I thought, well, if I do that as a marketer, I wonder how many other people do that. And I've been watching, I watch Twitter and I watch the way people are promoting their arguments, and you watch the way politicians put their arguments across, and all the time the same thing's happening. Everybody is trying to build unconscious bias into us. And yet, when it comes to the work, we're saying, no, we've got to get rid of unconscious bias. Well, here's the thing, you can't get rid of it. Unconscious bias is there. Now, what's this got to do with storytelling? Well, what I've found to be able to do, hi Catherine, what I'm doing here is I've just been talking tonight about unconscious bias and the way in which it works. Now, what I've managed to do is to draw on various different stories from my life, stories from the people I've spoken to, stories from the things I've done in different jobs, from the things I've read, different stories about my experiences as I've been going along, different stories that I've picked up from other people. All of those stories and threads I can then pull together to create a presentation, and it all becomes a series of stories and anecdotes, and I can build the whole thing up. So absolutely everything that's happening in your life, everything you do is stories. And in terms of being a speaker, that's what we're looking for, is good stories that we can use. And so what I do now is every time I've got to make a point, I'll look at the point and think, right, what do I know? What stories happened in my life? What do I know that I can draw on? What's happened to me? If I'm talking about customer service, I have loads and loads of experiences, little personal stories about challenges that happened to me while I was out and about, when I'm shopping, when I'm trading, when I'm working with different people, and I have all those stories and I can just draw on them. And it's those that people will remember. They won't remember the messages, they won't remember the complex details, they won't remember all about the unconscious bias, but they will remember little stories. And when somebody's thinking about unconscious bias, they'll, I hope, start to think, oh my God, I reach for these products automatically without thinking. And then I'll give a little bit of stories about different things like, so many people who are tall, and it starts to get people thinking about their unconscious biases, and then there's checking them. That's all we need to do, is just check and think, right, am I doing this because I'm naturally inclined to do it, it's just a bias, or am I doing this because I'm consciously looking at somebody for the right reasons, or I'm making a decision for the right reasons? Anyway, that's my thoughts tonight. Think about the stories, all the little stories you've got. There are so many things happening. All of the experiences you have in life are all material for great stories that you can use in your training, use in your speaking, use in your work. So thanks for joining me tonight. Nice to see so many people coming on, and look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Take care.